the streets of Minneapolis have turned into a powerful stage of grief and protest following the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good by a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) agent on January 7, 2026. As news of the shooting spread, what began as an ordinary winter morning in the city's south side quickly became a flashpoint of anger, sorrow, and defiance. Good, a Minneapolis resident and mother of 3, was shot and killed during a federal immigration enforcement operation that brought hundreds of armed agents into the Twin Cities. Bystander videos and eyewitness accounts of the encounter circulated within hours, showing ice-covered streets, federal vehicles and agents converging on a residential neighborhood, and a woman inside her SUV surrounded by law enforcement. The precise details of the moments before the shooting remain contested, but the aftermath was unmistakable. Minneapolis residents poured into the streets. By midday, crowds gathered at the very spot where Good fell, many carrying white roses and candles tucked into the snow, placing them near a small wooden cross and signs that read "Remember" and "Justice for Renee." The air was cold, but the voices of chants and grief warmed the scene as hundreds, then thousands, spilled onto the roads, blocking intersections and refusing to disperse. People held up posters condemning ICE and demanding accountability, their breath visible in the frigid air as they repeated her name. Outside the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building, nearby crowds swelled once more. A tidal wave of protesters stretched for blocks, some chanting Renee Nicole Good, in a cascade of sound that echoed beneath overpasses and along wide avenues. Flags and banners fluttered in the winter breeze as demonstrators, bundled against the cold, called for ICE to leave Minneapolis and end what many described as a cycle of fear and violence in their communities. People from all walks of life joined the demonstrations, students wrapping posters around their shoulders, parents pushing strollers past candlelit memorials, and elderly residents gathered with tears in their eyes. Across the city, similar scenes unfolded. In Hartford, Connecticut, chants rose outside legislative buildings. In Charlotte, North Carolina, marchers filled uptown streets demanding justice. In Baltimore and New York City, protesters congregated outside federal immigration offices and public squares, their voices amplified over speakers and bullhorns, all crying out for answers and accountability. Many of those on the ground spoke of Good not just as a statistic or a headline, but as a neighbor, a mother, a human being whose life was unjustly taken. They recounted her warmth, her involvement in the community, and the shock that someone known to so many could be killed in such a sudden and violent way. The grief was palpable, etched into the faces of those who posted photos of Good beside flickering candles. Tensions sometimes spiked. At points, federal agents clad in tactical gear attempted to contain crowds with chemical irritants, while demonstrators responded with chants of "no justice, no peace" and calls for federal authorities to withdraw. The governor's office, city leaders and civil rights advocates demanded transparency and a complete accounting of what led to Good's death, but frustration with the pace and openness of the investigation only fueled more protest. Schools were closed for safety, businesses shuttered their doors near protest routes, and Minneapolis felt the weight of a city wrestling with loss and outrage. The emotional resonance of the moment was intensified by the location, just miles from where George Floyd was killed in 2020, another incident that had previously brought Minneapolis to the center of a nationwide reckoning on policing and justice. As dusk fell each day, vigils lit up the snow-covered streets. Thousands of candles created pools of warm light amid the cold, faces illuminated by flame as residents, friends and strangers stood shoulder to shoulder, mourning but resolute. Their chants demanding justice for Renee Nicole Good, demanding the removal of ICE from their city, demanding transparency, filled the air and echoed far beyond the neighborhood where her life was taken. What began as a quiet winter morning in Minneapolis transformed into a crescendo of collective grief and activism that swept through the city and beyond. Rather than dissipate, the crowds grew, carrying with them the memory of a woman whose death became a rallying cry for justice and accountability in a nation already fatigued by questions about law enforcement and federal power.